What did your facility actually make last month? Not talking about your revenue, I'm talking about your actual profit after expenses are paid. Could you actually tell me what that is? And the reality is most owners that I talk to can't. And I'm not saying that to be harsh. Nobody really taught us this, that profit and revenue are different. We came up as coaches and trainers and athletes, not accountants. And here's the ironic thing. I actually spent 8 years as a corporate accountant, but that doesn't really matter here. Here's the real problem though with not knowing some of these numbers is you can't really fix what you can't really see. And right now, most facility owners are kind of making decisions based on what they feel month to month, based on their gut feeling and what's in their checking account, in their bank account. And that's not really business, guys. That's a guessing game. And I don't want you to play that guessing game. The game that I want you to play is the one where we actually know our numbers, we actually know what's going on behind the scenes of our facility, and we're gonna take a look at what revenue looks like, what expenses look like, what profit looks like, which expenses make sense for your business, which expenses don't, and maybe one at a time, which ones maybe used to make sense but don't anymore. And we need to take a look at what profit margin means in terms of actually hitting your goals. And that's the game that I want you to play. And by the end of this video, I want you to have a very clear picture on what's causing whatever gap there is between where you're at right now and where you actually want to be. Stay with me here. Quick intro for you guys that don't know me. I'm Dave Bartek. I've built and scaled a 7-figure operation here in Atlanta, a baseball training facility. You can see we've got a 10,000 square foot building that started at absolutely nothing. We now have an operation that is employing 12, and I've been working on this stuff for the past 10 years. I started out in a corporate career. I went to coaching travel ball and coaching high school players and started training guys in a local gym and got to the point where I was tired of that and wanted my own space. Now I help facility owners do the same thing, build real businesses with real systems and real plans to get them where they want to get to. I make content specifically for facility owners and sports training facilities and strength gyms to work on athlete development. So if that's you, subscribe and check out what we've got because this channel is built for you. So here's what I've seen more and more of. As I've met and spoken with more facility owners, what we have is, an owner that's doing $20,000 a month in revenue. They feel like things are doing okay. And this is just an arbitrary number, guys, but they feel like they're doing okay and athletes are coming in and their schedules are full and they're busy, and busy's good, right? Busy's a good thing. We want to be busy inside of our facilities. But what you don't know is, that facility might have upwards of, $18,000, $19,000 in expenses. Let's just say they have $18,500 in expenses going out the door every month, and that's payroll and rent and insurance and software and utilities and equipment. And, in this very simple-minded example, that only leaves us about $1,500 in profit on a $20,000 revenue basis. So let's draw some of this out real quick. I'm going to show you what this actually looks like. If we have revenue coming in, right? That's money coming in the door, and that is $20,000. Total expenses, like we said, $18,500. And again, guys, that's gonna be payroll, software, processing fees. That's gonna be equipment, obviously your rent included as well. That's gonna leave you guys with a whopping $1,500 left. And if you guys do the math on what the profit margin is there, again, I should be a math wizard. I know that's under 10%, right? That's probably gonna be somewhere in the ballpark of 7 or 7.5% of the revenue that you're bringing in, right? So that means for every dollar you bring in, you're keeping 7 to 7.5 cents in your pocket. Now, is that a revenue problem? Well, depending on the facility, $20,000 a month could be a revenue problem, but let's just scale all this and we'll add some zeros to this and you guys can start to see what makes sense here. So let's just say, let's get rid of all this stuff. You guys know what the expenses are at this point. Let's just say that we scaled this, right? 10x, right? That's what everybody's talking about, 10x. Let's say we take this to 200,000 in revenue. That's some pretty good revenue for any facility. And let's say everything else follows, okay? The expenses also 10x. Making sure I'm doing my math right here. Well, guys, we are left with something like this: 200,000 in revenue, 185,000 in expenses, and now 15,000 in profit. And you might be saying to yourself, oh, well, 15,000 in profit's pretty good. Not if you had to bust your ass to scale that revenue 10 times. So now ask yourself the same question: is this a revenue problem? The answer is no. Is this a marketing problem? Probably not, because if you're bringing in 200,000 a month in revenue, it's probably not a marketing problem. But in both examples, you know, these facilities would have had athletes. What we're seeing here is that this is a revenue model problem, this specific example. And the way this business is structured and operated, this is the main issue, the main and only issue. And the only reason that a facility owner might not see this is because they're just looking for the wrong number. They're only looking at the revenue number and they're feeling okay about it. And if you're looking at your revenue number and you're feeling okay, but you're wondering why you're not putting enough in your own pocket, then we need to take a look at all this stuff. And I've actually done a full video talking about the difference between revenue and profit. And that video will be linked in the description for you guys to also take a look at. But back to knowing your numbers. Before we talk about growing anything, scaling anything, we need to actually take a look at what's happening in your business right now. And this is super important. So let's go through another real example right here. I like going through some of these examples because it's visually just easy for you guys to see and they're easy round numbers. Just kind of reminds me of how simple this stuff actually is when I'm explaining it. So hang with me on this one because it's going to sound a little bit like a broken record from, you know, my profit versus revenue conversation and comparison, but there's actually a little bit more to it. All right, so let's say a facility is doing around 50,000 in revenue. Okay, let's just say they've got 40,000 in expenses and that's going to give them about 10,000 in profit, and that's a 20% margin, guys. That's a pretty good margin. We can get into whether or not this is including your pay, the owner's pay or not. That matters, but we'll get into that in a different conversation here. Generally speaking, 20% margin in a business, in your facility, in this type of training facility is going to be a good thing. Now let's paint the rest of the picture here. Let's just say that this facility has 60 active clients. Okay? And if we're looking at this conceptually and they have 50,000 in revenue coming in, they have 60 clients, that means it's going to cost each athlete about $833 per month. Again, guys, these are monthly figures to train at this facility. Now, where do we go from here, right? Because this is where you're at right now. If this facility has this coming in right now, they know what they've got on the table. Let's say this facility wants to scale to 75,000 for the month, okay? And we can get into this stuff later. What will we need to do to get 60 athletes at $50,000 a month and turn that into $75,000 a month? Well, there's a couple different ways we can do this. Keep in mind, the goal here is an additional $25,000 a month, okay? So option one here, obviously you can add more clients, okay? And if they stay at that $833 a month, then we know they're gonna need about 30 more clients to get to that number. That's just some quick math from me, guys. I know that if you need an additional 25,000, that's half of what you had before, which means half of your 60 clients would need to be added, so we need to add 50%. Total of 90 clients is gonna get them to $75,000. Option two, they can raise their average price, and if they keep 60 clients on board but increase the average price to, let's say, $1,250 per athlete, now they're at $75,000. There's no new clients required, And if we're being honest, I know our facility has done a pretty good job, ours specifically, in implementing a blend of both of these two things, increasing the athlete count while also increasing the average price over time in a healthy manner, doing so in a way that reflects the value of what the athlete's actually getting. Most facility owners are just gonna jump straight into, well, I need more clients and more marketing and more ads, and sometimes that's right, especially if we have a really well-oiled acquisition machine working. But a lot of the time, there's often a price leak somewhere in there, and there could be a packaging fix, just an athlete commitment fix. And that kind of closes the gap faster with less effort. As you can see, it's simply just raising the price or adding some clients. We didn't change anything major. And doing that, we're not adding any additional overhead. So naturally, it's gonna drive this profit number up. Now here's the piece that most people skip, and that's retention. So say that the same facility is losing 6 out of every 10 clients that they had before. And like every 90 days, every 3-month cycle, they're losing those guys. Then every time they go to add a new client, they've got to think about the fact that one's walking out the door on the back end. And we actually had a very good meeting, my staff and I, inside our facility last week, and we dove into our ad spend and some of the deeper level calculations that we go into with that stuff, things like ROAS, return on ad spend, in other words, how much money are we spending to make money off of our ads? And what we found was actually pretty fun to track. And you'll see this in our facility. We implement an annual training option for athletes. And this option fits in with all of our programming, but basically it gives athletes the option to commit to training year-round at a discounted price compared to what they would pay if they were just paying monthly or paying for each session. And explaining how we've set up that process is probably a different story for another day. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. But when we took this deep dive into that process and we started tracking how many of our conversions from our ads actually turned into annual commitments, and how many conversions from our ads turned into just athletes that trained with us for a certain amount of time and then bailed out. What we started finding and what we started realizing was there was a much higher lifetime value for some of these athletes that we brought in than we initially thought. And that's what we need to be looking at when we're talking about retention. The general price per athlete per month conversation that we just drew out here is definitely a beneficial conversation that you need to have with yourself. You need to understand those numbers. But when we're talking about like a monthly basis, it doesn't really factor in whether or not you're losing guys that month or the next month, or you're replenishing them with new guys. It's just one little snapshot when we're trying to take the whole video. If you're constantly losing guys and your athlete count stays the same and your price per athlete stays the same, then you're really on a hamster wheel. That's what you get. On the flip side of that though, if you can get a certain percentage of your athlete population to commit longer, now all of your efforts from an acquisition and a sales conversion perspective are gonna add to that total athlete count. You cannot advertise your way out of retention issues. I don't care how good your ads are. If your clients aren't staying, then the bucket you have in your facility has a massive hole in it and it is leaking. Based on what I just walked you guys through in those examples, there are really only 3 situations that a facility owner is going to find themselves in. Situation 1, low margin. If this margin is under 15%, you guys saw the examples I put up, and this depends on your facility size a little bit too, then you have a revenue problem and your pricing could be off, your expenses are too high, probably higher than they should be. Maybe your offer structure isn't set up properly, it's not built to be profitable, and adding more clients to this is not gonna fix it. It's just gonna scale a nasty problem. Situation 2, your margin's in a good range, but your retention sucks. And this is what it starts to look like when you're not really delivering a high quality product. Your business is not gonna be able to grow beyond what you personally can handle and your team can personally handle. And that is a systems and onboarding and operations problem, okay? If you're having trouble onboarding guys cleanly and doing what you need to do to deliver your product efficiently and let your clients know that, hey, we got you, then you're not gonna hold on to guys. And that's usually where that process slips away the most. 3, your margin is healthy, your clients are staying, you just need more of them, okay? More clients. Now we get into the problem that everybody thinks they have. This is actually the best problem to have inside your facility, because despite popular opinion, because this is kind of straightforward, most facility owners think they have a marketing problem and they need more eyeballs and they need to go viral and they need more ads and they got to post more on Instagram. But when you actually start looking at the numbers, a lot of the time, the problem isn't the acquisition of more athletes. It's gonna be one of these other 2 problems, or it's one of the other 2 that's killing this piece, right? Because if you can't do a good job with these pieces, then you're not gonna have money to spend on ads. And if you're not retaining guys, more guys are not gonna wanna train. But trust me on this, if you solve the retention problem or the revenue model problem with more marketing and add more people to it, you're gonna waste a whole bunch of money and you're gonna jack up your operation from top to bottom. You gotta fix these 2 issues first before you can add more clients. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go run your numbers. I built a free calculator and the link is in the description. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes to go through this. You put in your revenue, you put in your expenses, you put in your client count, you talk about your goals, etc., all that stuff. And it's gonna show you exactly what you're missing and what it would take to actually fix whichever one of these 3 issues that you may have. Now, if you put in numbers in there that look freaking awesome, it's still gonna spit something out to you and tell you, hey, this is what you probably need to work on. Just keep in mind, if you're doing great and your profit margin is super high, then again, you may not need to look at any of this. If what it spits out comes back to you and tells you that there's a real problem to solve and you wanna talk through what that looks like, there's a link below to book a call with me as well. We'll look at your specific situation and where you guys are at in your facility, and we'll give you some honest feedback on what it would take to kind of correct the course and get you guys back on track so that you can do this and keep scaling. That's it. Go run your numbers. The link's below. If any of this stuff was helpful for you guys, drop a comment, like, subscribe. If you're a facility owner working on real growth and working on growing and scaling, check out what we've got here weekly. I put videos out weekly for you guys just to talk about some of this stuff and kind of give you some ideas of what's going on in our world and kind of brainstorming things on a business owner to business owner basis. So I'll see you guys on the next one.